but I've seen them abused here in the House of Representatives. I think the only thing that really works is you got to elect people who are serious about balancing the budget.
They say balance the budget, but here's what they're not telling you.
I gave one to every freshman member of Congress, and the only member who wears one is a Democrat because he wants to show how much the debt's going up under the Republicans, and he has a fair point. You know, I think the balanced budget amendment is one of those things that sounds good on the surface, but it's the exceptions that are written into it that get you. In fact, I voted against the balanced budget amendment when it came to the floor several years ago, and I'll tell you why. It said that if Congress, if both chambers of Congress vote with at least 60% of the members, they can undo the balanced budget amendment. That was the exception. Well, just a few legislative days prior to voting on the balanced budget amendment, we had just passed an omnibus with over 60% of the House voting for it, and obviously over 60% of the Senate voting for it. So when Mr. Biggs, our colleague on the Judiciary Committee, offered a balanced budget amendment, he suggested the threshold should be 2/3. So I went back and looked from 2016 until 2026 at all the CRs that have passed the House and the Senate and all the omnibus bills that have passed the House and the Senate. And it turns out that 11 of the 16 CRs passed with more than 2/3 vote in the House, and 14 of the 16 CRs passed with more than 2/3 vote in the Senate. The results are similar for the omnibus bills. But I believe my colleague here, Mr. McClintock, has suggested a 3/4 threshold. So what does a 3/4 threshold get you? Well, in 2024, the CR passed with 77% of the House, and 77% of the House in the next CR, 72% of the House, 74% of the House, 78% of the House, and finally in 2025, not too long ago here, the American Relief Act, the second CR of 2025, 84% of the House voted for that. That sucker wasn't balanced. What about in the Senate? 85%. There's literally almost no threshold you could put in there that they couldn't override and haven't overridden already. So, Mr. Walker, do you want to address that?
Yes, thank you, sir. Number one, you have to define what type of unexpected events can cause there to be a potential exception to the rule, and then you have to have a high enough threshold combined with those unexpected events to be able to limit it. And in addition to that, you have to say it's for year by year. In other words, you don't just get a pass, it's year by year. With regard to the convention, this is not a constitutional convention. The Federalist Papers make it very clear that the founders intended there to be Article 5 limited conventions. There are several safeguards to deal with your question, Mr. Raskin. Number one, a majority of the applications back in 79 and today are fiscal responsibility only. There's state delegate legislation.
Let me follow up, Mr. Walker, sorry.
Yes, sir.
On something you said, that you have to specify the exemptions, and one of those is war. I have tongue-in-cheek remarked that at least this would get Congress to declare wars again, because there's an exception if you declare war. This gives me some concern, because I've watched them play budget gimmicks here with something called OCO, Overseas Contingency Operation. It's supposed to be for emergencies or for things that came up, contingencies, not expected, but they have used it to fund the basic defense of the United States, to replenish stockpiles and whatnot. And forgive me if I'm very suspicious of specific exemptions, because I've seen those, you know, they were statutory, not constitutional, but I've seen them abused here in the House of Representatives. I think the only thing that really works is you got to elect people who are serious about balancing the budget. The result of the big, beautiful bill and the CR and everything that's passed since then is that this year we've increased spending $200 billion. And next year we'll increase spending over more than $200 billion. But, I mean, my colleagues are, my Republican colleagues, and especially my Democrat colleagues, but this whole place is unserious about balancing the budget. And if you give them any exemption, they'll use it. And the reason, honestly, they're not that serious about it is because they can get reelected every time by telling people they can cut their taxes and increase spending and things are going to turn out fine. Well, that is not the case. And with that, I see my time has expired.
What you just watched isn't really about numbers, it's about priorities. The idea of a balanced budget sounds responsible, but it leaves out a key reality. A country isn't a household. Governments are expected to step in when the economy falters, invest in infrastructure, expand healthcare access, and protect people during crises like the 2008 financial crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic. Cutting spending across the board to hit a target can mean cutting the very programs that keep communities.
The real conversation isn't just about spending less, it's about spending smarter and making sure revenue matches priorities. That includes asking whether the wealthiest individuals and corporations are contributing fairly, and whether long-term investments today can reduce deficits tomorrow through economic growth.
So, when you hear simple solutions, take a second look. Budget policy is complex because real lives are attached to it. If you want clearer breakdowns like this, make sure you like the video and subscribe for more.